Do you know anybody called Clem Caillé?
Nope.
Okay, all right, somebody's trying to reach me now. Okay, so welcome to Borum Energy Solutions, home scale wind turbines and towers, a primer, and today is session 5. So topics today include part of the installation. So we're going to talk about base and anchor location, and we're going to talk about the tower base and a little bit about the anchors. Okay, and we have a lot more to cover over the next few sessions about installation of the tower and the turbine and raising it and all that good stuff. So this is the first part of the installation process, which deals with identify where the tower base and the anchor should go, and the base of the tower concrete pad. Okay, so that's the topic for today. Okay, so what are some of the factors to consider when selecting where the tower base need to be? Okay, well, the first characteristic, first element to pay attention to is where the dominant wind comes from. Now you're going to say, where do I find that? Well, it is included in the Borum Energy Solution wind rows, which is in the AEP report. So what you have here or here, I'm not sure which one you see, this one. What you see here is an example of a wind rose, right? And it tells you that in this particular location, most of the wind comes from the west and southwest. There's nothing on the other side. So dominant wind is in the west and southwest. So once you know that, then the question is there anything blocking the dominant wind? So in this case, is there anything in the south, southwest, or west from the draft or targeted tower location? Now that could be man-made. Okay, if you're in a farm, a silo, or something, it could be, and most of the time, it deals with canopy height. Now, most people, including myself, it's not easy to really measure the canopy height because we have no way to relate it to it. So we have an infographics. I put it here, where if you look at it, it provides a list of 3 smartphone applications that you can use to measure the canopy height. And in fact, it's pretty close. It's within 12 inches or something like that. So for us, it's just fine. All right. And then if you have this kind of canopy or obstacle, then you want the tower height to be a minimum of 10 feet above the tallest obstacle in the dominant wind direction. Okay. So windrows, dominant wind, obstacle, those are the things to look at. All right. What's the second thing that we want to look at? Well, our tower is a tilted tower. Advantage of that is you don't need any special equipment to assemble it. What that means is that the tower is assembled horizontally. All right. So basically, you need enough room equivalent to the tower height plus 10 feet. Okay. So what that means is that when you look at a place for your tower, then you need to find if there's enough room within the 360 degrees of that location where you have enough lay down area to put the tower down, to assemble the tower horizontally. All right. Now, why the 10 feet? Well, because after the tower, you need to add the turbine and you need to have a little bit of room to work on that. Okay. So you need to look at that. And here's something that happened in one case. Once you have that location, you want to make sure that there's nothing that will prevent the tower from being raised, right? Because once it's down, you assemble it, then you have to raise it. And that means, trees or branches or whatever else that can prevent that. It looks pretty obvious, but sometimes when it's a field and all that, the excitement, the temperature, whatever else, we tend to forget about some of these things. Okay, so those are the things that to consider when selecting the tower base location for a specific wind profile. Okay, so I'm going to cover this in terms of, okay, I'm going to cover this now. So this is how to identify the anchor's location. And this is for the Anorra 1.4. The Anorra 1.4 towers are, it's a tall tower with 3 anchors. So each anchor is 120 degrees from each other. Okay, so that's what we have here. Okay, so this is the anchor 1, 2, and 3. This is the base of the tower here. And those lines are there to mimic or display a little bit what the guy wires look like. All right. So I'm always asked, so what's the anchor distance in relation to tower height? We usually go for half the tower height. All right. So you can see that if you have a 44-foot tower, you need 22 feet anchor distance. And this thing tells you a little bit what the surface area that you'll need. Now, one point here is that once the tower is up, that space is free. So some people use it for gardening, some people use it for other things. So it's not an area that is led to waste. It can be used for all sorts of things if there's a need for that. All right, so 120 degrees from each thing. And then the question would be, so how do you know, how do you go about figure out the distance and the location of each one of them? All right, well, let's cover that. Okay, so here's the tower. So the key one here that we need to look at is anchor 1, which is on this side of the tower. Anchor 1 is always opposite to where the tower is assembled horizontally. So the tower being assembled horizontally, and we put anchor 1 here. Okay. So we always identify anchor 1 opposite to where the tower is assembled. And also, we want to make sure that there's about a couple of feet on either side to make sure you can work on the tower as you do that. Now, this is a little bit a graphic. It's not great, but it is what it is. So you got anchor 1 here opposite to where the tower is assembled horizontally. And then this is to depict anchor 2 and anchor 3 that technically are 120 degrees from each other and from anchor 1. So anchor 1 is where the tower will be raised from. So this is where you put either your winch, your tractor, your pickup truck, or I think in BC they have a huge crane system, whatever. So this is where you put your, this is how you're going to raise it. So here's the thing. If you're planning to use a pickup truck or a tractor, then you want to make sure there's enough room here on this side to make sure that you can bring your tractor or pickup truck there to raise the tower. Sometimes people forget about the room required for that. If you're going to use a winch, may not be that critical. You can use the anchor itself to connect to the winch or other items like a tree or something like that. Okay, so now you're going to say, so how do I figure out where each anchor goes? Well, we made something here that is pretty straightforward and easy to use, okay, in the field. So again, first start here. Okay, this is the diagram I showed you before. So you go for tower height. Let's say in this case, you have a 44-foot tower. So what you do is you cut some ropes. You need two ropes, one of 22 feet and the other one is 38.1. Okay. So you cut these two ropes, X and Y. All right. And you start, anchor one is easy because anchor one, at the you can measure the distance. Anchor one is always opposite to where the tower is assembled horizontally. So if you have anchor one set, then you connect rope Y to anchor one, and you connect rope X to the base of the tower. And where the two ropes connect in your hands, you're holding the two ropes in your hands, where they connect is where the anchor is going to be. So it's very, very straightforward. It works very well. I've used it so many times, and it makes connecting and figure out the anchor location very easy. Anybody can do this. Okay, so X and Y, you have the ropes here, the length. So you can do that for anchor 3, and then you flip it and do that for anchor 2. And that way you've got all 3 anchors already identified. Right? Nothing complicated, and it works very well. Okay, so that is basically, at this point in time, what you have is, you know where the tower base is going to be, and you've identified where the anchors are. So now we're going to spend a bit of time talking about the base. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the tower base is a concrete slab. All right, high level, it's 4 by 4 by 1, deep, 4,000 psi concrete. The key thing is always identify where the tower will be laid down for an assembly installation. In this case, we're just gonna show it like that. So we designed the tower base so it's easy to buy the material locally at your famous or favorite lumber store. So it's 4 feet by 4 feet. So you buy 8-footers, you cut it in half. Okay, you put them together like this. Make sure it's square, so it gives you the diagonal that you need to look at. Okay, put some stakes if you want to, nails, whatever. So at the end of the day, this is what it looks like. All right. Now, having said that, you also, to reinforce that concrete, we recommend a wire mesh. Okay. Again, these wire mesh, you can buy them at your favorite home hardware store or whatever. They come in 4 by 8. So technically, you just cut one in half. So that gives you 4 by 4, and you put 2 of them, and we'll show you where and how to put them together. Okay. So it's made so that you don't have a lot of waste, and it's easy supplies to find and to get. Now, in order to connect the tower base, the tilt base, to the concrete slab, we used to use drop-in anchors with rods, and I think that it's been proven to be a bit challenging for most people. It's not easy to drill holes in concrete to make sure that by the time you do the drop-in anchors and the rod, to make sure the rods are vertical and also at the same distance from each other. And that proved to be a bit of a challenge. So what we're providing now is what we call a concrete cast. And basically it's made so that it eliminates the need for the installer to have to drill these holes and deal with the precision and that kind of stuff that required. So this is an element of the concrete cast. So at the end of the day, you'll see it's made of a steel plate here. Okay, nuts and rods. Okay, so 4 rods. Obviously, the hole in the plate I'll set up so that it's exactly the distance required between each one of the rods. Okay, so you assemble them again before anything before you go there. And then see, this is the part that I was talking about. Since you're going to hang that into the concrete form, then what you do is you put two support beams. So those are the two support beams. Again, 2x4 would do it. Drill some holes in it so that the rods can go through. Okay. And then when you're done with that, then you put the second plate here, anchor plate, with again washers and nuts. So at the end of the day, this is what it looks like when you're done. You have the concrete cast, right? You have the rods ready to go to be, okay. And this is dropped in the form before any concrete is poured. So what we have here is, a cross section of what this looks like at the end of the day. So what you have is a little bit of gravel, 4 or 6 inches of gravel, so the water drains, right? So you have, this is my, the form, 4x4 by 1 down, right? So you got concrete. Then you have the wire mesh. Remember, we talked about that. It's 4x4. You buy it 4x8 at the store. Okay. Then you have the concrete cast here that's sitting here with the support beam, okay, being held by the side of the form, so it doesn't go down further than it needs to be, but it will be at the right height by the time the concrete is cured. So concrete, we get another wire mesh here, and you put more concrete. So you fill it up. At the end of the day, this thing is 36 bags of concrete at 4,000 psi. So you let that cure for technically 28 days, depending on temperature. And when you're done, you remove the nuts here, you remove the support beam, and then you're ready to install the tilt tower base, because now you've got the rods at the right place, vertical. And I think it's fair to say that without the concrete in this area here, yeah, this thing is not going to move, right? It's pretty solid. So that's a little bit at this point in time what the concrete tower base looks like. It's the same system for the Anorra and Anorra 1.4, and it's the same thing for the Anorra Plus, except there's a small change on the concrete cast, but it's not relevant to this right now. So that's a little bit the ease of installation. The thing I want to identify is if you have an opportunity and you want to proceed with the installation, finding the location for the anchors, location for the tower base, and then doing this concrete and all that needs to be done ahead of time, because at this point in time, you need to let the concrete cure. Now, some people will say, well, I don't need this thing to cure. It's not that important. It is very important. It's not the weight of the tower. Once the tower is up, the weight for that concrete pad is not that significant. What we found is that when the tower is horizontal and you start raising it between 0 and 5 degrees, the shear force on that base are very, very high, right? Because if you think about it, you're trying to raise it, but you're pretty much horizontal. So you're putting a lot of, the tension, horizontal tension is very high compared to the one in vertical. And this is where you can develop cracks or whatever else in that concrete base. So very important that you let the concrete cure, at least, well, they say it's 28 days, depending on temperature, to make sure you don't develop and create cracks in that concrete. Okay. I think I went a bit faster than I was expecting. So I'll leave it here. And next week, we're going to talk about anchors, and we're going to talk about adding the tilt base to this whole thing and assembling the tower horizontally. But before I get that, I got to open it up to Q&As.